Hi, everyone. Dr. Micah Hamilton here, and we're back with the Apeiron Epigenetic Performance Series. And as you know, we're all over the place with our topics. We're complex systems, precision performance, data-driven, and it's always an honor to speak with all of our guests. In particular, today, I'm thrilled. Dr. Amy Coleman is with us, and Dr. Coleman is one of my dearest friends. She is Apeiron's medical director of our corporate performance division. She is the CEO and co-founder or founder of Wellsmart, and it's a veteran female-owned designated entity that really is in service. Amy, you know, the way you have served everyone in your life is just stunning. Amy was a flight surgeon in the Air Force, and she was in Operation Iraqi Freedom. You were the youngest female commander, weren't you, for Special Ops and the advanced medical forces, the top generals. And I know that a lot of what you dealt with in those times was rather significant. Also that it has led to you creating things that are efficiencies for that environment. And so I would love today if you'd share just a tiny bit of that with us. Also a horsewoman. The grace with which you ride those beautiful horses, it's just wonderful. I know today you're going to speak with us about really a physical examination 2.0, right? So what do things look like in this current environment from a medical perspective? Where can we go with the next new creation of new systems that really make a bigger impact, serve more people, right? Create an interconnectivity really within ourselves and across the globe. So welcome.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here. Yes, it feels like I'm in your living room and it's just so cozy. It's like a meeting with friends. It's just it's just a blessing. Thank you for having me. So, the medical atmosphere at this time is really allowing us to see maybe what we haven't seen before. Maybe what we've seen before, but that has been covered. And, you and I served in the military, and it's very much a part of our own DNA. And we were trained, at regular intervals for mass casualty events. We were trained for, it was just a part of the everyday role that we played to be ready and to have our inventory up to par, to expect the worst, but yet hope for the best. And we were very highly educated and trained in preventative medicine. So it's really interesting because our dynamic of seeing this picture of coronavirus is a little different than maybe the physician who went through natural progression of college, went through medical school, the academic world of the residency, and then right on to practice. Because what they didn't get is this operational value of always being ready for mass casualties. And that was something that was just entrained into us. And from that's where preventative medicine in the military really allowed us to strike a chord. That's where that's where this elite type of medicine first began, was this preventative medicine that really started to scale because we were taking care of people that were doing absolutely amazing things in a physiological setting that was very disturbing, whether it be, 40 meters underwater or pulling 9Gs in an aircraft, a F-16 aircraft, or something that was, above and beyond what human physiology is supposed to innately, evolutionarily experience. So because we've been in these situations that always had us going, what's next? What could possibly happen next? And yet we're always prepared for what that might be. I think that we can share with our providers right now in the medical milieu that this too shall pass, and that oftentimes you're often making up your journey as you go. No matter how many mass casualty events we've prepared for in the military, and you have and I have too, anytime it's a real deal, you're always making it up as you go. And there can be a sense of great fear in that, because even though you're prepared, you're not prepared when the reality hits. And so, the avenue of learning how to move in these types of settings is something that never becomes root. It never becomes something that is old hat. And unfortunately, in medicine, we go by recipes, or we go by diagnoses, and we go by things we can put our thumb on. And this is one of the first things that we haven't been able to put our thumb on.
Right.
And the evolution of that, and what we're going to learn from that, is actually going to inform how we're going to be as physicians going forward, which is perhaps not naming something so quickly and thinking that you know exactly what it is. Being in a state of this, okay, I'm open. I'm open to this person in front of me, what it might be. I'm open to what might be going on. I'm open that I've got teammates now, because this is something that the military also taught us, was that you weren't anything without your team. You did not function without your team. And as a physician in the military, my teammates were my patients. And so I might be taking care of them in the clinic and looking after their strep throat, but they were going to be flying me in the back of in the fighter aircraft, and they're going to be taking care of me. So it was like we were on even ground. And right now we're kind of at this ground zero in medicine, where in just a split second moment, the doctor could become the patient.
Right.
And so we're in this place where we're learning how to be a team. And there's never been a time in medicine that we needed to be more of a team with both our patients and our colleagues than now. I remember coming out of the military and going into residency, and I remember the thing I was most disturbed about was that every physician was out for themselves, and not in a way that was to be judged or considered cruel or unusual. It was just their training to be one man is an island.
Right.
It was that type of reality, because they never learned. There's not teamwork in medical school. You just learn to bury your head and bulldoze through. So this is really the first time, I believe, that as a global initiative, teamwork is developing. And I will say, as a veteran of war, when we were setting up the hospitals in Iraq, and we were a hub in Balad where all the injured would come to us in Balad from all over Iraq. And so we would triage, and we would stabilize, and then we would fly them out either on CCAT missions or whatever it took to get them to the higher echelon treatment places. And in that, you would see the worst of people's issues, meaning their disease or their infirm, just like we're seeing now. But you would just in this split second moment, just like two sides of a coin, you'd see the most humanity enriching, heroic, heartwarming, unifying picture of medicine. And so, what I'm seeing now in this milieu of our current medicine going on here in COVID is that it is wartime medicine, and we are learning these hard lessons of being unified, being on a team, and then strategically realizing how important preventative medicine is, which really it was just a shade of kind of maybe something somebody would speak about here and there, but not truly embody. So when you go through something like this, I call it a crucible experience. And so many authors have called it a crucible experience, which is, if you've ever been a chemist, there's a little tiny, kind of like a cookware type of a ceramic dish. And if you want to purify a chemical that you want to work with, let's say you've gotten it from a company and maybe it has some impurities in it. You put it under the fume hood, you light it on fire, and it's in this crucible that won't melt, and it will hold it. and it burns off all the impurities. So then you've got like this pure element. So not only does it happen with chemistry, but it happens in people's experiences where they are in the kitchen and it's getting super hot, and the kitchen just being, just an idea, but we are really in this kind of this hot, intense place. And what doesn't belong in our mindset anymore is going to leave. And what needs to come in as a philosophy and be embodied, because that's the only way you can make a knowledge something real in your life when you're stepping forward and living it. So we're in a crucible experience, and that is something that defines a whole new platform for medicine, a whole new platform for us as physicians, and how we're going to see each other after this and see our patients.
Right.
Just like in the military, we are one stone throw away from being a patient ourselves. So we've got to see each other on the same kind of strategic eye vision level. And in that comes trusting each other. And so there's a lot of values that are building towards what we're experiencing, even though it'd be so easy to just see that it is, the last nail in the coffin of our economy, or the worst thing that we could ever experience. It is actually both. It is the worst and the best in the same breath.
And it drives beautiful innovation and through a creative lens. And what's interesting as you talk about the military, it's definitely more. It's still not completely, but it's definitely more of a complex systems lens where we take into account the total exposures and the preparedness, because the goal is to keep them fit to defend and fight, right? And so it's coming at it from a different approach. And the whole idea is for those systems not to break down, so that the human system is ready to do X, whatever X might be. And so if we take that and we look at what we now have available from a total exposure health perspective, advanced technologies, advanced biologics, and go more to a complex systems precision nature, for us, through the lens of performance, not sick care, not treatment care. What if we didn't get sick and didn't need treatment, right? So it's for Apeiron, even beyond what's called prevention. Now, so if we look at this all through that lens, it means that this human system has to be whole and complete, every aspect of my system, right? Not just, is my cholesterol okay today? So what you're talking about from a physician perspective is a completely flip on its head new model. It's not a changed model, right? It's a brand new one. So, and this is why we're calling this the physical 2.0. Tell us more about what you know to be true through your experience of treating the system as a whole, so that it thrives and flourishes, right? Not just prevents heart disease, right?
It's such a good point that you make, Micra, because seeing the whole system is interesting. It depends on where you are in your life, how you see a whole system. So if you look at a car and you don't have any experience of being a mechanic, you really don't see much. If you can look at it and go, looks good to me. Or if you've got deep rooted experience in how a car performs at its finest, then you can almost just smell it, sense it, flip the hood open and just crank it up, and you can understand, hey, I know what's going on here, because there's an experience, there's a deep intelligence that is kind of embedded in this practitioner's awareness. So when I was a flight surgeon, it was kind of true too. I'd been a patient my whole life, up until I was about 14 years old. That's not really my whole life anymore, since I'm, mature now, but it seemed like my whole life. And so, bits and pieces of intelligence would come in of how I could help make myself well. And so when I kind of embodied that, I was able to then realize, okay, how do I help other people get there? And with the advances that you're teaching in Apeiron, this is kind of accelerating the person's ability to know what they can do to help people without them having to struggle for 14 to 20 years and figuring out themselves, right? So that is an angle that makes it a great tool for people. However, when I was in another thing that actually helps that when I was a flight surgeon is the act of being kind of in this, not just the modality that we learn, like, oh, gosh, why don't you check your nitric oxide level to see if your vascularity is flexible enough to handle, what you're doing so that you don't get cold and slightly chilly weather. Let's see. And those types of things, those types of intelligence that we know, the genomic sequence and things are great. They bring so much to the playing field when it comes to strategic wellness. However, above and beyond that, what I found in the military was I really knew my clientele. I knew my patients. They were of like a certain extreme platform in which, there was a small number of them. And with that, I got to know them, how they functioned, kind of really could kind of tune in. And in that, I really kind of lost myself in a good way, if that makes sense. I would go in and I would kind of be a blank slate and basically, how can I help? I really had this essence of feeling I want to help them be well. And from a sense of just selflessness. And that kind of essence, that kind of building of my own ability to open my heart and be in a state of awareness, always this listening awareness, kind of created this place where I feel like the intelligence we learn can be embodied in a new way. I think it's always been done, healing from a place of caring. And I think healing happens all the time. I think it happens within ourselves when we are balanced, we're in a balanced state. So one of the modalities that's actually very advanced is listening to yourself and actually taking care of yourself before you start trying to take care of someone else. Because oftentimes, and it seems like, well, she's really just saying what everybody knows. Yeah, but it's harder than you think, especially in times of war or in times where the world is turned upside down and on its head. What I've seen in this last 2 weeks is that people have been shown how to go and make great recipes for their family, entertain their children, teach their children, exercise and work out, get out into nature. They've got this to-do list that they've checked off, everything external that they can reach for to bring some inner joy. I'm going to say that some of the major purposes of being a healing strategy for someone is not in just offering the peptide or offering the information, but offering it in a place where you have increased your consciousness, where you are a template that is contagious, not as a virus, but as a healing remedy. And so if I ever went into the flight squadron and I wasn't squared away and had just kind of cleared myself out and didn't bring any kind of, annoyances or things, if I was truly kind of that vessel, then any modality I was using, any intelligence that I was bringing out and sharing with them was received in a better way. So we have to see that modalities of care are not just the acupuncture, the physical therapy, the information about their genes, but also what is the vehicle that's giving it. And so what I'm seeing right now in COVID, we are on an endurance track. Last week was a novelty. This week, we're starting to truly, basically dig in. And when we're digging into not knowing how long it's going to be for us to get out of this and living in the present moment and being aware that this may last a while, let's get settled in. The next thing we need to do is what I'm speaking of, which is checking in on ourselves. We've checked in on everybody else. We've checked off the to-do list of the novelties. Now we need to do self-exam 2.0 and check in with ourselves.
And so you're going to tell us, right, the best way to do that, because busy minds, right? Busy minds, they're not used to doing this.
Well, and it's true. And sometimes, yeah, it depends on who you're speaking with. And when I'm speaking to a microphone here and to you, I can share this with you readily. And I believe, we're at a point where we're probably open to whatever works. It's like the general I used to take care of, who, he was kind of a guys that was just the facts, ma'am, and he actually went and got acupuncture for the first time. Actually, the acupuncturist came to him. He'd had a herniated disc, and he just wanted to be able to do some desk work before his surgery where he wasn't in pain. So we brought somebody to him, and once he got the acupuncture and it was so much better, he could sit in his chair and do his work. He looked up at us and he said, "Well, I don't believe it, that, but it works." So it's never a fact that you ever have to believe something, to be honest with you. But the fact that we're just giving you this information, and you might be curious enough to try it for yourself, and in that curiosity, you might be curious enough to go, that kind of makes sense. I might sit on that for a while. And then, maybe even let it inform you, because one of the things that we look to our patients for is informing us, telling us how they feel. However, what if you never asked yourself how you are really doing? And that has been something in the military that was a trouble for a very long time. As a matter of fact, PTSD was not really considered a thing until 2008, 2006, when one of the generals I was taking care of actually brought it to a huge level of attention. And everybody else who had been denying it at that point basically said, well, if this guy has it, it's the real deal, because he is about the toughest guy we ever know. So as we know better, we do better. And so one of the things that we want to do is prevent things like PTSD, because we've been listening to our bodies. We've actually asked the question how it's doing, just like we ask our patient. So we need to start considering ourselves as the patient so that we can be better practitioners to other people. Otherwise, if we don't, and our bodies are getting tired of us not listening to it, you're going to have this kind of brewing sensations of frustration, anxiety, issues that you think you're hiding from your patient, and you're not. You're not fooling anyone. So going deep within yourself and understanding what's maybe brewing before it becomes a problem is the next step to do. So what I can start off with is something that's super simple. And this is an exam that you're not going to be used to. An exam you're used to is like maybe somebody auscultating your heart and just listening to the sound, or auscultating your lung and listening to your lungs, right? Or just poking on your belly and making sure it's not hard and rigid. But that's pretty much it. When you go to a doctor's, they might stick it in your ear, just look at your ear. They might look down your throat. They might shine a light in your eyes. So we all know that examination. It's really just an observation. But this is more kind of a listening, how are things going on the meridian angle. Meridians in acupuncture are your electrical conduits, and I'm acting as an electrician right now. If I'm going to touch on some of these meridians, I'm going to see if they're all open, if they are all open circuitry, if the currents are flowing like they should, and if they're blocked at some level, then your body does respond to that, and it does give symptoms. So just for example, let's try this. The very first one would be our governing vessel 20 on the top of our head. This is a point in acupuncture. We're right at the top of the head. You can experience pain if you press up here, if you've been overthinking. And also, right up here. And also, if you've really been overthinking, and this is something that Japanese acupuncturists do, because we actually use palpation before we inform our treatment. So up here, if you feel it's boggy, so I'm going to show you right here, if you knock on this, there's just it's very hard. It's just skin and forehead, skin and bone. It should feel like this back here. But if you've been overthinking a great deal, you'll feel kind of spongy. It'll feel kind of swollen. It'll feel kind of boggy. It'll feel like there's actual fluid underneath the skin back there, which tells you that you need to take a break, that you need to go, what I used to say in the military is go smoke a lucky, but I would not say go smoke a lucky. I would say just go unplug your brain, because you get too much circulation up here, which is actually overriding your electrical system and can deplete certain other systems down below when it comes to how the electricity runs through your body. And it's very important that run equally. Okay, so first of all would be that one there. Second of all, now this is not an acupuncture site. It is acupuncture point, but it's actually more known as the temporomandibular joint. But just on either side of your jaw, if you were to open and close it and have any pain on either side, right here where you see my thumb is in that the divot between your cheek and your ear here, you'll feel kind of a ridge, and it'll drop down into the little ditch area. And then open and close, and any pain there, that would indicate that you are clasping, grinding your teeth because of tension. So your body over time, when that happens, you're going to start having tension headaches on this side. You might have a compression that actually sends it down into your neck, and then you'll say, well, what the heck? Why is my neck hurting? So again, checking in with yourself to see how you're handling a situation is very important. So, and then another one, and I'll have to change my camera a little bit. It's going to be a little bit like playing Twister today. Right here in the sternal area. So right here in between the chest area, this all the way down. You can tell I've been in the sun a little bit today, because look how it's red and then goes white and blanches. This is an area that if it was tender, you would know that you're breathing too short and too fast. And also that you're hoarding a lot of tension up through here. So again, just check in with yourself. Make sure that you're doing the right type of activities to keep these areas completely open, completely circulating the way that they're supposed to. These are early indicators of stress. So that's something to think about. Another one here. So this is the fire point of the lung meridian, right here at the base of the meaty, I won't say fat part, but meaty part of the thumb here. So if you were to press here and it's painful at the base of the thumb right here. So this can mean a couple things. A lot of times it can be an indicator of respiratory distress. If you have asthma that's exacerbating, if you have sinuses that are making your bronchioles tight, that can be something that is making that area painful. But also in the Chinese tradition, the lungs actually are the emotion, they have an emotional reservoir for grief. So what we've got to realize is that as we watch the news, we're seeing people, in hospital beds that are not able to say goodbye to loved ones. We're seeing people's businesses, evaporate. We're seeing homeless people not able to get the care they need. We're grieving that. So if there is kind of a building of grief, of this feeling of grief, oftentimes this area, when you have absence of respiratory physical symptoms, will tell you that you're kind of building up this emotional resistance here. And so again, it's just a modality for you to realize that you need to go out, get out in nature, perhaps meditate. If prayer is your thing, then let that happen and get closer to that, to where you're not shouldering all of this just within this vessel, so to speak. Okay, and so there's one on the other hand as well, because we're not just a unilateral, asymmetric entity. So those are a few places you can check. As well, people are drinking a lot more right now. I see people that were doing maybe one glass of wine a night, and now they're up to a glass a night or 2 glasses a night, because it's just the easiest thing to feel like they can release some tension. So with that, you're going to actually have some kickback from your body, no matter how healthy that you hear from, Dr. Such and such that red wine is great for you. Alcohol itself is still a toxin.
Yeah.
It's still a toxin. And for people that are sensitive to it, can affect their sleep system as well as affect their ability to actually be kind of emotionally stable. Drinking over time, over 24 to 48 hours afterwards, can have a depressant effect. And so one of the places that you would check with that is actually right between your toes. It would actually allow you, and I don't know if you have a great pedicure and you want to share it with us today, Micah, but mine's not so good. But anyway, I can show you on the screen. There you go. Okay. So I told you we were going to play Twister today. So if this is let's see if I can get it in the camera. So if this is your foot, you would actually check this point just a few, I'd say even just a inch down from where your first and second toe is. And you'd press there. You'd press right there and see how your liver is doing. Now, if that's a liver point, that's one of the endpoints of your liver meridian. And if it is painful or if it's achy, then you need to lay off the alcohol because your liver is becoming what we call in acupuncture congested. So that's something to look at. Another place, and I'll bring my toe up here, is right, excuse me, where let me get it?
No, I can't see that.
Is on the edge, the right edge of the great toenail. Who knew we'd be doing this today on camera? So the right edge of the base of the great toenail, so there'll be the edge closest to the second toe, the edge of the great toenail closest to the second toe, right at the like what we call the quick, the right side of it, closest to the second toe. Just depress that area. So that is an area we use. Like if a patient were to come in to see how their system's doing, I might press on a few of these areas to see, is there liver congestion going on? Is there grief? Is there too much thinking going on up here? Is there too much tension emotionally here? There are lots of other ways to do it as well. There's many other points that we can go through, but all of these are just the scientifically ordained meridian system that we own, and why not use it for kind of a deeper look into how to know what questions to ask the body and be willing to listen to those answers.
Yeah, I love that you bring up the alcohol thing, and it's super interesting because we're really being asked to look at our patterns and how well those patterns are informing a thriving state, or we're creating diminishment. And right now, I would say we definitely have a responsibility to keep our immune systems as high as we can possibly keep them, not just for ourselves. It's great that we stay healthy so that we're not brought down with this, but it's even better for anyone that might be around us. Yes. So it's actually a gift that you're giving yourself and others by really going, I think I can a lot of people take off alcohol for Lent.
Yeah.
I think I can take off, 90 days of alcohol because it really does affect my sleep. All of our clients wear Garmin trackers, and, First Beat Technology did a study on 4,000 people, alcohol intake. And there was no question of what you communicated of alcohol being a toxin in the system, which if you're having one a week or one a month, that's a different story than 2 to 3 glasses a night, which you open the bottle and you just kind of go, oh, how did I drink all that? Right.
Yeah.
And so
you realize as well that the liver is a huge part of your immune system. And so anytime you're doing this little check, and there's so many other points that we can learn, but this is just a highlight of some. This point here where your head is like so engaged, and this stress point here, realize that when you're in fight or flight, you're robbing the energy that is needed from the immune system, because you're putting it to the wartime reactive survival field of action. And so the parasympathetic nervous system, which governs the immune system, is not getting, the vitality that it needs. And so if you're making choices and choosing external, external things that you can just grab and bring in to yourself, you're going to be, depending on what those things are, suffering consequences of what those side effects can be from those. So you've got to make really high level choices, or you might be kind of digging yourself out of an immunological hole, just from thinking you're making an easy, fast choice that will take care of it in the moment and be paying for it for 2 or 3 days, right?
Yeah, it's also remarkable to me that we can, they don't traditionally teach self examination, right? To know that tension in that spot is an indicator that something's off in the system. In fact, any pain and tension in the system is an indicator, right? And so you basically say, let's really take our interoception and go, what's happening in this system? Right.
Yeah.
Not just the physical pain, but what's happening in my cognitive, my emotional structure, my sensory systems.
Absolutely. It's so true. And the art of the physical diagnosis is like the art of anything else that basically has just been, revered for a long time. And now the new generation is kind of not knowing it, because right now the MRIs, the CAT scans are the examination that people have. But the touch of the patient and the getting to know yourself and the communicating from the neck up and the neck down is really going to bring much more to medicine when we can employ this love and this reverence for the physical examination again. Like right now, doctors are not touching patients, and for a good reason, but they weren't touching patients for years before this happened.
That's right.
And I just remember in medical school going through and going, how am I learning anything about this patient by this physical exam? And so what I love about the traditional Chinese philosophy is that the body is always willing to tell you what's going on at the deepest level and at the most superficial level. You just have to know how to ask it and want to know the answer, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. And listen, right. Listen, what one of the goals that Apeiron has, right. We want to reach 1 billion people by 2025. And when I say that, I mean to educate on the complex system human, all aspects of the human being in a balanced state, in accordance with the intelligent design of this system. Because when we don't break, we don't die broken and addled. And it makes no sense to me. So I just go, what if we imagined a day where even the word healing made zero sense, because there was nothing to heal, because we kept this system in a prime and thriving state, and it simply healed itself, right?
You're healing all the time. You're healing all the time.
All the time.
As long as you're allowing it. And that's the idea, is that so many people of us are kind of living this world where our bodies are our transport mechanism for our cranium, and we don't have this interrelationship with, oh, wait a minute, maybe I really need to figure out why this little ache is going on before it becomes a big ache. What does it need? Ask it. Just be like, what do you need? Maybe just be open. What I'm trying to say is be open to wanting to know, rather than cursing it, judging the issue, telling it you wish it were, somebody else's arm. You really, that kind of stuff brings on greater problems in the future, because you're not putting out the small fires first.
Yeah, and that's I wish we would all kind of look at ourselves like the only car that we'll ever have.
Yeah.
And you don't get a new one, so you get to really treat this one like it's a rock star, right? Or whatever that representation would be in your mind. Gosh, I love this. I love the way you bring, the Eastern ancient traditions into the modern Western practices. And I think as we recognize like we talk about science and spirituality, it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
And we just have to kind of widen our lens quite a bit bigger and see how all of the parts and pieces interconnect, interrelate, and do system support for whatever is slightly diminished. Right. So that it doesn't ever get to the place where it's offline. I mean, I so love what's coming, because we all recognize that this is not the last global crisis that we will encounter.
No.
Right. So maybe if we just go, hey, what can we do right now to ensure that the next one that comes along, we're prepared, because we weren't prepared for this. Right. I even look at like disaster preparedness in the military. We were not prepared for this, even though we've been talking about it and doing scenarios forever. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting to look at that and go, what is really necessary to prepare? And it's simply being a stronger human, creating an anti-fragile system that doesn't get taken out by things like this, because it's thriving.
Yeah, and the great point is, after 9/11, basically it became a big defensive structure of what we learned from that. We became much more defensive. Take off your shoes, you might have, a bomb in your shoe, or in your 3 ounces of shampoo, and so we became a very defensive structure. But now what's interesting is that we have a choice now, that with what we're experiencing, that we can open the platform to say, hey, we can be invulnerable. Like, in other words, we can create a state in which our body has what it needs to do anything that we ask, within reason, and not going to go out and jump into a pool of anything, like a COVID-19 virus specimen. But you would be fine, because your immune system has exactly what it needs to defend off any bug. Because there's been lots of theory. It's never the germ. It's just how great a hostess are you for it, right?
Right, and that is just so important for all of us to see. Our time is going, and I'm sad, because I love these conversations that really open windows of new perspective, to just get curious about, what if I didn't ever get sick?
Yeah.
And knowing that this system is limitless, if I inform it with all of the amazing inputs that I can provide it with, beautiful, loving thoughts, pure foods, just movement in nature, connection with each other and the planet. I mean, it's super interesting to go, what does create thriving in this human? And then just to take 1 or 2 of those things and begin, and then let that experiential feedback create your next new opportunity for that bigger window to just keep opening. Right, because I trust in the sovereign nature of our intelligent being. We're not here by accident, and we certainly can be a bit more on purpose and with purpose.
Sure can. It's not just the top-down approach, which is all the labs and the things that you can do. It's the bottom approach. It's the bottom-up approach as well, which is, it's not about doing. Sometimes it's about being, and how much of that beingness can you be, which is what serves the world. So definitely interacting with yourself first, putting your oxygen mask on first, means, doing things like this, where you don't let things get swept under the rug. You're listening, you're plugged in, and then you're ready to serve.
And aware. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so I am going to put your website up. This is where anyone can get a hold of Dr. Coleman, wellsmartservice.com. And you wrote a book, and they can find this book on your website, I know. Absolutely. It's Discovering Your Own Doctor Within. And Amy really provides useful strategies, actionable tips that you can know how to be that for yourself. Wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to go see doctors, at least in their current form of sick care, treatment care, medicine? Not everyone, because there are those like yourself out there doing complex systems, more in touch, connected medicine. And so I think as more models stand up like this in medical schools, in hospital settings, the care and feeding, nurturing of the human will change. And they won't look at us strangely when we come in, and just to make sure we're doing great. Instead of, no, like, why are you here? No, there's nothing wrong with you. Why did you come? I mean,
That's
it's so interesting.
We'll be looking for them to show that higher level of performance on all realms, which right now, as long as you're living and breathing, typically you get the go ahead for the see you next year.
Yeah. Well, I know 10 years from now, we're going to see very different systems in place. I'm super excited about them.
Too.
Thank you, Dr. Amy Coleman.
Thank you for having me.
I love you.
Wonderful pleasure.
Happy day.
Happy day to you.